Before you start listening to today's episode of In This Body, the podcast, I wanted to let you know that today's episode explicitly references the use of plant medicine, ayahuasca, and psychedelics. It should be noted that plant medicine, ayahuasca, and other psychedelics can have serious risks and should only be undertaken with the appropriate guidance. The legality of these substances varies by location, so ensure that you comply with the legalities that surround you. Welcome to In This Body, a podcast where we dive deep into the potent power of embodiment. I'm your host, Ailey, Jolie, a psychotherapist deeply passionate about living life fully from the wisdom within your very own body. The podcast In This Body is a love letter to embodiment, a podcast dedicated to asking important questions like, how does connecting to your body change your life? How does connecting to your body enhance your capacity to love more deeply and live more authentically? And how can collective embodiment alter the course of our shared world? Join me for consciously curated conversations with leading experts. Each episode is intended to support you in reconnecting to your very own body. This podcast will be available for free wherever you get your podcasts, making it easy for you to stay connected to In This Body, the podcast with me, Ailey Jolie. Welcome to today's episode of In This Body. I'm so honored and excited to have Sarah Warnaar with us. Sarah is a mentor, artist, and women's work facilitator who supports women in embodying their sensuality, opening their hearts in relationships and creative expression, and also supports them in connecting to their very own power. Born in the northern portion of Holland to a family of psychologists, Sarah's journey as an international model exposed her to various cultures and spiritual practices, but also confronted her with society's superficial views of feminine beauty. A pivotal health crisis at 24 led her to embrace a path of embodied living and spiritual awakening. Her personal path is what creates the foundation of what Sarah offers to others today. In her work, Sarah creates healing spaces for others to realign with their true essence, which serves as a bridge from trauma and codependency to archetypal and tantric work. Sarah's work combines psychology with embodiment practices and energetic healing, focusing on plant medicine, breathwork, and rebalancing masculine and feminine energies too. She mentors women through personal one-on-one sessions, holds yearly retreats, and runs the Temple of the Feminine Flame, a global online community. Sarah, I am thrilled to have you with us today. Welcome to In This Body, the podcast with me, Ailey Jolie. Where I would love to start with you, Sarah, is your experience of moving from being someone who was deeply immersed in the modeling space, traveling all around, being international in that career, to where you are now as a mentor and women's work facilitator. If you could share some of that journey and maybe some defining moments.
Good question. All right. So for those who don't know, I started modeling internationally when I was 17, and it was really my ticket out. I just wanted to experience the world and discover myself, and it was a really beautiful journey. And it kind of upheld this image of like the ideal feminine, right? Like the perfect image that we're programmed to believe that the feminine is, and I really bought into some of it, and some of it I didn't. Like I had a pretty clear mind and upbringing, but some of the things also alerted me, like this idea of being found beautiful, and this kind of ideal image of the feminine, and to kind of represent that in some way. And when I was about 2021, I started to develop eating disorders in all kinds of ways, from being very skinny to bulimia to just being very rigid and controlling with it, because there was a lot of pressure in that world, and kind of having that control about my physique represented independence and money and success for me. So it was a big pressure. And this is also, a couple of years after that when I started to to do therapy and really knew I had to change something, right? Because my body was always sore. I was always uncomfortable. My body was really suffering because of the disordered eating and my body image. So then my healing journey started, and it took a couple of years, maybe 5 years, before I was like fully on it. I'm like, okay, this is my path. But I started to heal, these patterns and the trauma that I had in my body, which is quite a lot. And I was raised by a family with a psychologist, right? My parents are atheists and they're psychologists, and I learned a lot in that space. And it really helped me, psychotherapy, but there was still just like a soul longing of something was missing. And then I found embodiment work, and I found a path of the feminine, and I found a path of, the more energetic, multidimensional world. And those things really healed me in a lot of ways, right? So I think I was about 29 at that time. And I was cooking at a retreat, and I believe one of they had a fight or something, and she was like, "Can you do all this stuff? Can you facilitate one or two workshops?" And I was like, "I think okay." So I offered it, and as soon as I sat there, I just felt at home. I felt like this was for me. And then she asked me to co-facilitate her retreats, and it just the ball started to roll, and but then when COVID hit, the choices I made were that I couldn't travel very much with COVID, and especially with modeling. And I just saw it as like a redirection from life, and started to offer breathwork online and just the things that I loved. And people were asking for coaching, and it just started to bloom, and I started to do training myself. And very quickly, I had a completely different alignment in life where I felt very carried. And then I became a mentor for women on this path, and helping them with often a similar path that I walked. Mhm.
I love how natural it was for you, that transition. It wasn't necessarily something it sounds like you went and like sought out or strived for. It just like really gracefully unfolded based off of what you were already doing in your life. And I would
Mhm.
love if you could speak to any challenges that you faced embodying your sensuality or your feminine power in today's worlds. Because as beautiful as it sounds, like gracefully unfolded, I am assuming there were some sticky points or challenging points in that process too.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I do really believe what it really taught me is you don't need an agenda too much. You just need to trust like this kind of divine breadcrumbs that life sets out for you, and follow that aliveness, and just what turns you on and what awakens pleasure and passion in you, and just follow that, and eventually they come together. Like the poetry and my artist side, and my love for bringing people together, and my upbringing, everything came together in the job that I have now. But to give it a title is even difficult. It's just my soul offering myself in all these ways. So it really taught me the feminine path, and just to allow it to unfold. Um, and yeah, a big part of that is to blossom in your body, in your senses, your sensuality, your sexuality, as you mentioned. And I think one of the tricky things is that um, often we or close our sexuality because we're taught we get objectified as women. It's like too much, we get punished for it, we get negative attention, or we kind of use it to seduce a little bit. We objectify ourselves, right? And kind of use it to manipulate a bit in some way. So I think the challenge for many women, and for me, has also been to stand in it and really hold my own sensuality, my own power, and my sexuality, and like stand in it, hold it, own it, radiate from within in it. without numbing, but also without extraction. And it's an energetic transmission that you can hold, and you can, when I'm around my partner, I can just let it loose a bit more. And when I'm around somebody else's partner, I might turn down the volume a little bit. I think that's something that a lot of women struggle with a bit. And the other part is this tendency to live in the head and all the things we need to do in our daily lives, and the pressures that really disembody us from our sensuality or sexuality, and pull us out of the essence of the feminine, which is more heart and womb centered and not head centered. And that is a challenge of something that we're shifting greatly in this society, when we want to lead and create and work and be in relationship from a more feminine design, you know.
Could you speak more about that shift in how you stand with or embody your sexual or sensual energy? I know for me, that was a big insight I received on a medicine journey once, of like the ways that I was out of integrity and how I was using my sexual energy and where I could use it differently or leverage it differently. That would be more in my authenticity and integrity. I'd love to hear more from you on that piece, because I don't feel like it's often spoken about, and how you can discern those two places of like how we can use it in maybe a more manipulative or coercive way, and how it can look quite similar but be really authentic and in integrity too.
Beautiful. Yeah, for sure. So how I teach everything, or a really big ground in my teaching, is that I work with inner fullness first, inner satiated wholeness, your inner union, your inner sovereignty, right? And then your connection to God, the divine, the goddess, that outside of yourself, and then in a relationship. And it's something I work with in many different ways, because it really sets the base from a full place of I am love and I'm overflowing from that place, instead of I need to extract, I'm lacking, I need to pull in validation, being seen from the external, men or women, you know? So for me, it starts with doing the inner child work and working with your patterns where you are extractive, where you do hold unconscious patterns of not feeling enough, because that's where you will become extractive and codependent and seducing and all of those things. So working with gaining clarity on what those patterns are, in general, that's always really important. But when it's really more focused on sexuality and sensuality, also looking at your kind of societal conditioning that you hold around it, like, oh, I shouldn't be too sexual, or I should be way super sexual, or sex is only something you do with a man, or there's like these really strong beliefs we hold around sexuality. So on the path of Tantra, which I walk as well, I said in the beginning, I always said, like, forget everything you've taught, been taught, forget all of that. And it's about coming back to your inner wholeness and your inner sexuality that is organic and natural, because you are this erotic force as a feminine being, right? So it's much more the opening to your feminine sexuality is much more about opening to who you actually are and forgetting a lot of things that you've learned, or rewire them, instead of teaching new or learning new things, and like, like the tantric path or something. It's much more about stripping a bare and letting that emerge, because your pleasure and your erotic energy is completely natural. It's your strongest energy that you hold. And so I would then start to open up that energy through movement, through pleasure, through dance, in a way that soothes the nervous system of the women that I'm working with. And so first, like, finding that pleasure, what you love, what you don't love, what you long for, and also self-pleasure with yourself, right? So with self-massage, with self-pleasuring, and really finding your fullness in your own pleasure and your own sensuality, right? And then from that fullness, letting that radiate out through to a partner, because often we go into sexual experiences super codependent, like pleasure me and like literally fill me, right? And it's not that we can't go deeper together, it's just that you already have your own pleasure, you already have your own love, you already have your own validation, you already have that. And then to from that fullness, letting that come out to a partner. That's kind of the way I would walk with that.
One thing that you do often speak about, and I would love to hear more of the link, is in a lot of your work, there's this emphasis on sisterhood.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear how that kind of fullness internally and not extracting, how that plays into sisterhood. Because as someone who works now, it's split. My practice is not fully femme-centered, but it was for years. That is such a giant wound that I've noticed, like in my own story with women, usually not women super close to me. It's oftentimes people removed. What led you there, and how does that play into that kind of extracting? If you could speak to that.
Well, how can we heal the feminine if we are or be in our feminine when we hold wounds towards or other women, where we're in competition with other women, when we compare with other women, where we're in that kind of lack mindset towards other women, right? So it's in sisterhood, you heal that. You know, you're mirrored, held accountable, reflected, triggered. But I always say in my circles, like, you're gonna be triggered, and that's great. It's like, see it as an invitation to expand. Are you gonna judge it, or are you gonna get curious and allow that trigger to open a part of yourself that you may still be foreign to, right? It's just an invitation. Are you gonna reject a frequency or say yes to that frequency? And sisterhood, yeah, it's so dear to my heart and soul. It's like an ancient knowing that we all need, and sometimes don't know that we are so hungry for it, right? We're so hungry for it that we've lost it. We really need it. We need circles of women. And it's something I knew I was looking for, because I really loved circles and bringing women together. But I didn't really find the one that was really suited for me. Like, I felt some of it was lacking masculine structure. Some of it, I felt it was missing like a bit of the dark, funny, joyful, raw, humorous feminine that I really like. And then so I just started creating my own, and it started to attract these women that loved all of that. And now it's a really strong, very powerful sisterhood that has built over the years. And it's kind of like this simmering safety and support that's always in the background, no matter what's happening in your life. And it's a deeply safe and encouraging feeling to have that sisterhood. And you have to find the one that suits you. It's just like, you don't love all music or all theater, right? It's not like the spiritual path or the sisterhood. You have to find just, attract the ones that really suit you. But I feel it's such richness and really makes me feel so supported in life. And yeah, for sure. And coming back to your question about like going from this kind of extractiveness in sisterhood, and a good sisterhood doesn't allow that. Sisterhood confronts you and holds you accountable. Like, I am not always a sweet pie in my circles. I'm loving, but that will not serve some of the women. And some of them put me in my spot. And I love that. Right. So a good sisterhood doesn't allow that, because it's kind of like the old paradigm of competition instead of there's enough success and beauty for everybody. Yeah.
Could you speak to what your journey was moving from modeling into kind of this emphasis on sisterhood? And please correct me if this isn't your experience, but having a similar background in modeling
Hmm.
would work my competition. Like that was pretty ingrained in me that like I don't make friends with women. We don't even try that because
Hmm.
they could get the job and I don't want them to get the job. I want the job.
Hmm.
So like I'll just be friends with men. That was pretty like young age. I got
Okay.
that. But I know that's not everyone's experience in modeling. But I am curious how you made that shift or if that was always within you as well.
Hmm. Hmm. It's so interesting. I heard this also from like men, like brotherhoods is like their friends are often women at the start because they can actually be vulnerable. And we then, become this like one of the boys. It's just wounding, it's just wounding. Um, so I really am not very competitive with other women. So I was kind of a bad model in that. I always wanted to make friends with everybody like at the castings. And I was always like, and like my agent put like younger girls with me to introduce them because I would show them all around the city and like I just was not very good at it. I remember once this everyone was like, when you had in Milan or Paris, like some years ago, you have your book and everyone's skinny and hungry and just walking over the streets. And you always knew it was another model because they had this huge book and now they have iPads, but they didn't back in the days, right? Like, and you just knew, and they would always walk past with this kind of like, like arrogant look. There was always like this, oof. So I remember once instead of smiling, I was like, I'll do the same. Maybe I should just do that. So I did it once. I was like, walked by and just was the kind of like this bitchy look. And I felt so bad afterwards. And I was like, this doesn't work for me. Like, and it just was never really my thing. And I always thought if she gets a job, then
Mhm.
she's better. Like it was never really good at that. And also easy to say, like I always worked pretty well. So I didn't have to have that, that competitive edge. And but I think it's something in me. Like even when I was a little girl in school, I would always organize parties and things and I would like teach them stuff and like get them together. And my mom was like, oh, not again. You invited the whole class. And I think it's just something in me that I want to I really like to bring people together and also having been bullied when I was little, like I really like to get the underdog like out and so I've made some really good friends in modeling. There are still friends. And at some point, I was just interested in this work. I started to organize like women's circles in my house. That's kind of how I started. And at some point, my friends were like, "Oh my gosh, she's doing one again." And I was like, "Probably need to expand." And then other women started to come, and it just grew. Like that. Really, that's how it went. So. But even in modeling apartments, I was always the one like cooking for everybody or like that kind of mama energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of have that.
I
Yeah.
really appreciate that for you. That was fully authentic. I definitely masked as that. And it wasn't
Yeah.
a plant medicine journey where I was like, oh shit, like underneath all of that was like a deep insecurity and a comparison that was consistently going on, even though it looked like I didn't have it. So I love for you that it was so much more authentic because I've always felt that way from you. Like I've never felt like you have that there's that energy that you can sometimes tell between women when you feel like you're being like a little sized up or something. I've always felt like, oh, I can just totally surrender in her presence, and it's
Mm.
totally
Yes, and it's interesting now you mentioned this. It's like it's not authentic for anybody. It's
mm,
completely programmed. It's completely programmed to I my partner Nick was on the Temple, which is my online community yesterday, and I asked him, "What would you like women to know?" One thing,
mm,
and he said that. Oh, I'm not gonna phrase it perfectly, but he mentioned that they should know that their attractiveness really comes from their radiance and the energy they embody. And some of the women he's found most attractive in his life were like older and not like, you know, standard attractive. They were in their body, and they were, they were embodied, and they were in their sensuality, they were in their radiance, this radiance from inner union that just, radiates out from within. Like, that's attractive, because the feminine is energy, it is love. And if they feel that they can't help to turn their head, right? It's like, it's a deeper radiance than just the physical layer. But so much of our energy is being channeled to that, just to that superficial layer. And I remember once when I really thought about it, and I was also reading about like like how this corrupt patriarchal system was created, and the goddess cultures, and I was really thinking like, wow, like if you feel into the earth, and like all the energy that women put into competition and objectifying their body and talking negatively towards their body, which I was also doing, some years ago, and the body dysmorphia, and the money and the energy they spend on looks and Botox and whatever of that, and being super thin. And what if that energy, which is energy of fear, and it's not even true, what if that was redirected at our radiance and at our power and loving your body? And I was like, I'm not there yet, because at the time I was in, recovering from eating disorder, but I just kind of decided like, I want to be a woman like that. I want to be, like 50, 60, and just be this wise, awesome, sexy woman who just loves her body. And it's, we just kind of rejected that system. I was like, I want to be like that. And I really, that urgency helped me to step out of these illusory games, illusory games.
I got chills when you named like that 56-year-old woman who just loves her body so much. I went on a women's retreat that was almost 3 years ago now. And I was around all women who were mostly in their 60s. I was definitely the youngest one by a few decades. And for me, it was such a liberating experience to be around women who had made that choice. To really go to that place and find that type of inner union and have sensuality and sexuality, and to do as best as they could to go like this with all of that patriarchal, superficial stuff. I would love to hear from you what the process of doing this has looked like, continues to look like, how you support people in that process. You can answer any three of those questions. I would just love to hear about it from you.
Well, you started by answering that by naming the word choice. Choice is everything. And when we start to realize you choose everything in your life, then you can start to have a powerful life. Choice makes you a creator. It's really choice. And I've seen it also in my like ayahuasca journeys. Like, one choice alters all timelines. It's like the plates. What are the plates of the earth? They just
Tonic
they
plates,
switch. Yeah, tectonic plates. They switch timelines, and that makes us really sovereign creators. That's our kind of God spark. Like, we can create by choice. So sometimes we make unconscious choices, right, through our programming and childhood pain, right? And so at some point we've said yes to, I agree with, I'm needing to be a certain way for my body to love myself or be loved. We've made that choice at some point in our life. So firstly, I would say to become aware. It's always awareness, the masculines first. Become aware of your patterns and the beliefs that you've named your reality. Because reality is just your set of beliefs. That's all it is, right? So first, becoming aware, what are the beliefs that you've said yes to? It starts with that always. Because then you can start to notice when they come up, right? So I would then, whenever I wanted to be very controlling with food, I would just have this other voice at the ready it says, I can also not. I can also take a breath. Just a breath changes it. And now with love I eat, or with love I prepare. It's that changed it. It's not that difficult. Well, it's tricky, but it's not, it's simple.
Yeah.
Or every time I looked in the mirror and the voice would come up, like, you're a bit too thick there, you're a bit, that not enough voice that will never just so all the women listening, it will never reach home. That's what it's meant to do. So all the top models, just as insecure. It doesn't matter, right? Like, it doesn't matter. So just to know, it will never reach home, right? So just that voice, and I was like, of being in the mirror, and I would say, I'm going to choose again.
Mhm.
I'm good as I am. And even though I didn't really believe it, like, you start to make different choices. So I call it choosing again. And so become aware and then start to choose again. And if you do it enough, you will start to create new realities. And then adding the embodiment work, because all of our emotions, it's stored in our body, right? And in our nervous system. So we do need to work with actually taking, like, first, you're this as a model, then you go, that's very different. But also breathing and moving all these stuck energy patterns out of your system. And I did that a lot through embodiment breathwork, through archetypal work, through ayahuasca. They helped me to realign my body, my soul, with the new choices that I wanted to be my reality.
I would love for you to speak to your experience with plant medicine, specifically ayahuasca, because I know it's been deeply a part of my process, and I really went into the vortex for a few years with that specific medicine. And I love how you speak about it, and I would be really curious to hear about how that plant medicine has supported you in your ability to connect to your body, your sense of embodiment. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. So I think I feel there's a lot of judgment and convictions about plant medicine. And what I hear a lot is like, it's the way, or it's completely evil drugs. And I'm just like, no, both is, that's
Yeah,
not how it is.
totally.
You are the way. You
Yes.
have all the wisdom.
Totally.
You, and for me, that's God. You could call it divine. That's the relationship. That's the base of it all. All the
Mhm.
other stuff are helpers, a mentor, ayahuasca, they're guides. But when for me, it was like when I first drank, it felt like a home, and I felt like she was just aligned with my energy. It's a very feminine plant, very deep, very funny, very harsh, love. And she kind of beat me into surrender. And I'm a very stubborn ego. So, and a very wild soul.
Mhm.
And this plant really, really helped me to release all these lineages from my feminine line, the pain it was holding, my trauma that I was holding, but also really to awaken the power inside of me that I knew was there, but she really, really, really showed me. So,
Mhm.
um, and she really just opened me up to a world that I always knew it was there, and then I just really saw it, and I just knew, like, oh yeah, I'm a soul. Wow, I've been told from an atheist background, I'm a soul. I'm a part of the divine. This is all a game on earth. Like, it just, like, all these things that I just felt, I was like, ah, like, um, so she's been a really beautiful ally. And how I work with this plant medicine, I work with her a couple of times per year. And for me, that's enough. Um, and I really like to weave her in with my retreats. So
Mhm.
half of my retreats are without plant medicine and half with. And so I really like to work with the psychological inner child layer. So we are very grounded in the work. And then work with masculine, feminine, with tantric work, with all these beautiful layers of the feminine design, the feminine soul, expression, relationships. And then ayahuasca, for me, really can help to bring it even deeper, and really connect to, yeah, sometimes it's quite an earthly journey, but she can really open you up to the greater picture, to the greater universe, to your soul lineage, to where you're really from. She can really work with broadening your mind. It's all about beliefs, as I was just saying, right? So you think this is your reality, and ayahuasca goes, what about all of that? You're like, oh, and it can really expand your reality. And so I find her a very beautiful ally to weave with the feminine work. She dances with the field that I don't want to say create, that comes through me, or that I channel for retreats. And she's just an amazing ally in that way. So do I think she's the answer? No. Do I need her? No. But I love her. I adore her. I'm so grateful I get to work with this spirit, it's the spirit
Mhm.
of the earth, the spirit of Mother Earth, who is a conscious being. It's incredible. It's like incredible. Did I just answer your
You
questions? I just
did.
got a bit of a,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I know
Okay.
you did. I loved how you named it not being like the way. I know for myself, like the first time I experienced that plant medicine, I like fell like straight in the rabbit hole. I don't like, I think in like 100 ceremonies in a very short amount of
Oh,
time.
wow. Oh my goodness. Okay, you're in
You
the,
know,
yeah,
but those were my
yeah.
masculine parts. They're just like, let's keep going. And how I've always heard you describe your experiences with ayahuasca, I feel very honoring of it being an ally and it being a spirit and it being something that can be go for me. It's felt like it goes inside my body and kind of finds these little places where things have been stored and just goes, hey Ailey, look and feel over here, just like
Mm.
just put your attention right here, and then just like, the journey will then go on, and then it's like, okay, we did that, now like go look in this thing that's over in this other part of your body.
Mm.
And it's always, how you've described it, has felt so integrative, and I would just love to hear a little bit more around what your experience of that plant medicine has really brought to your life, or what you see other women gain from making
Mm.
that choice to have that experience, I guess.
Yes, yes. Yeah, beautiful. So I just want to address again that I kind of see this plant medicine as, like you do the work, you have your daily life, and it's kind of like the cherry on top. She helps you just go, okay, woof, open into that. Like it's just, that's how I see it. But I kind of feel like I need to deserve her a little bit. Like, I go into my world, my journey, my life, and then it's like, it's time for hmm, a deepening, or there's something that she wants to like that she wants me to see more of, right? That's kind of what I feel she can be. And I always know what I'm asking, and I always get the answers, which is not for everybody, but
Yeah.
I'm very aligned with where I'm at, where I'm pulled, and what I need to ask. And then she like expands that in me. That's my experience, not for everybody, right? But some people get like a gibberish of things, and then 2 years later, they're like, "Oh, that was what she was," like. So I'm not saying that's my experience. And the only time where I didn't get it was the last ceremony. I was already pregnant. I took like a spoonful. It was tiny, but it was so strong. And I was like, whoa, I'm very pregnant already. This is maybe, I was okay, but I didn't feel like it didn't feel as clear. So I didn't do this the second night. It was the only time I didn't really feel it. So she is like a weaver. She helps you in the journey. She can be that. And that's what I encourage women of how to work with her, right? Um, I've seen such amazing things as it's planned. I think that the fear of the unknown, the fear of letting go, the fear of letting go of the ego, the fear of letting go of control, the fear of going beyond identity, because it's just, identity, what is that? The fear, and actually feeling and falling into what's behind that, I think it's the biggest gift, because that's who we actually are, and she really takes you there. So you can resist it, it's going to be very difficult. I'm also head first. I'm like, here we go. So I don't feel much resistance with ayahuasca. I'm like, oh, take me. So I think that's something that it really gives to a lot of people. And last ceremony, there was a woman who had abuse within her family, which she had just reminded in the retreat. And she was really afraid to go into the ayahuasca. She's like, oh, because I don't want to experience it again to heal it. And she was really afraid. And I was like, well, we sat, and I was like, what if your intention is more like, I trust what I need to feel and see to actually heal this. I trust this medicine. And she did. And the medicine told her, is like, you don't have to go back in. You're okay. We're just gonna work on anchoring in your light and step into that. And that's how she stepped out of the retreats. It was so liberating for her, right? So it can serve you in that way. For me, it's been incredibly healing to it, like nights of shaking, like shaking the trauma out of my body, like back into my body. Oh, broke me open into my heart, into my womb, into this deepest feminine. Most of my teachings that I teach about in masculine and feminine, I received through her, through my communication with why I'm here. She told me I was a feminine priestess. I was like, what's a priestess? And it's not, like, oh, I had an epiphany of being some prophet, but it was just like more of a remembrance of why I was here. Um, she showed me where I'm from in the stars and who I really am in my soul. Like, it's big gifts, she can give to you.
I love how you speak about it because it's so humble. Like even that comment there of like not being a prophet, of it just being like, no, this is the information that was shared with me. And how do I
Yes.
start to embody it? Like that's a piece that I really hear from
I
you.
think it's so important to stand in your power of who you are, but it's also like, especially as a healer or something, what I do, I am of service and it's not about me. And it
Mm,
needs to, first it can be healing for your own inner child as well and your own matrix programming. I get that, but eventually you really need to get out the way. And um I don't like I'm in ceremonies, but I'm not like the main medicine woman. And people always ask me why not. It's because she doesn't call me to do that. Like, why would I do that? Right. So I think this path, when you're really on it, it will humble you again and again. You're of service and you're here to give yourself away from fullness to the world, and yes, I'm a priestess. So I'm also just Sarah who does the dishes and like, you know, likes to have fun, and like it should be both. You can be very aware of the bigness of the soul that you are, just as big as anybody else is. And
mhm.
yeah, I think it's very important. Yeah, to keep your ego in check a bit in this world. Yeah.
I love how you just really just kind of, at least what I heard, kind of double backed on your authenticity and that embodiment of not competing against women with that comment there. Of like,
No.
soul is not any bigger than anyone else's. We're all just here doing the thing.
Yes, stand in your uniqueness,
Mhm.
offer your whole soul. You're very unique and stand in it, but it's all the same. We're all
Yeah.
just as divine and just as faulty. Like, I like vulnerable leadership. Like, I am good at having vision and leading, but I'm also definitely have my own struggles and waves and what do I know, right? So
Mhm.
I think that's healthy. Mhm.
Really healthy. Absolutely. Yeah. When I look back on my time, I think some of the pieces of my professional career that I have the most like about is when I was younger, new therapist, and I thought like, oh, I've done all this studying. I know the things, and I look back and I'm like, you didn't, you just didn't, and you never will, and that's really okay.
Yes, exactly. But that's what I've also loved about like our connection is easeful, and there's like a trust. It's not complicated in a lot of ways. And I've also had to really learn that in the beginning I was still quite impressed by some really like big women with lots of like tantric and lots of whatever, and like spiritual names, and I was like, wow, they're really, I don't know what. And
Yeah.
I was like impressed by it, even some men, and then I really learned it's all just bullshit, like and to really like dismiss that and have boundaries with that. And like I really work with people who feel like calm in my body, and I can feel that little girl, I can feel that power, but like it's like this calmness in my body when that's the women I work with, and those are also the ones who I run retreat with, and it's just clean and clear, and it's very pure. um that's the choices I make now in this work, and that served me well.
Mhm. One
Mm.
thing, it was actually my mother who said this to me, and I've always hung on to it. And she would say to me, she's like, Ailey, a lion never has to tell you they're a lion. They're just a lion. And she gave that
I
to
like
me when I was in
that.
my kind of spiritual journey, and I was looking at these like people, and I was like, oh my God, they have this big energy and
Yeah.
da, da, da. And like I want to be like that. And she would keep kind of giving me this reflection. Um,
Mhm.
because I'm
Mhm.
not very public with my spiritual practices. I mean,
Mhm.
my mother had me as a trained Reiki master before I was in kindergarten. Like it's like
Mhm.
deeply spiritual place, but always this language of like, you don't need to say it. People just need to feel it. And that is the essence of something I deeply felt when I met you, even though we haven't spent a lot of time together.
Mhm.
Um, there's always been this ease, and you feel calm in my body as well, which is I really want to just
Mhm.
celebrate that you have spent enough time with yourself to create that type of union in your inner world that
Mhm.
that radiates out of you.
Thank you so much. I'm receiving that. Thank you. That's really beautiful to hear. Thank you. Um, yes. And it's something I trust so much within myself that I know who I am and what I'm here to do. It's like I never question that. It's just it's so nice to feel that. Um, And I've also had to learn to actually name it sometimes, because I would
Mm.
just be like, people just have to kind of find me, and I don't want to like promote too much and or ask like certain prices. I was like, woo, there's a little bit of that. Like, why not? Like, it's not about like, look at me, but like kind of matter of fact, like this is what I do, this is what I am, and I'm standing in it. I don't need to, get braggy about it. I don't have to go down that path, but just to stand in it, without the fear of judgment or needing validation from it. I
Mhm.
think that's it. And that's a bit of the judgment that I received a lot in my life, to the kind of like become a bit smaller.
Mhm.
So for me, it was kind of like the other way. I had to like my therapist did like ego enhancing things with me. And I was just like, I was like, ego enhancing. It's like, yeah, you have to like be a bit more. I was like, oh, okay. Um, which is also ego, making yourself small, but that's another story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but thank you so much. It's nice to hear.
I would love my last question for you. I would love if you could share um, any additional resources or practices for others to get into connection with their body, if that even of itself feels like a foreign connection, if foreign idea, if there's anything that comes to your mind that would help others with their sense of embodiment.
Yeah. How about if I just give three short, simple
Yeah.
practices? You know, um, Well, first of all, to be okay where you are, start there.
Mm.
Sometimes we make doing the feminine work like, oh, that's something big or out there. I'm so out of my feminine. No, you're actually mostly not. It's right there. It's right there. You are it already. The feminine's not about becoming more. It's just peeling some layers back and she will just want to burst through. So don't make it too big or too abstract, right? We make it too, I want to be on the feminine path. You are the feminine path, like um, so it's sometimes, when I work with a client who's really disembodied and very maybe a bit dissociative or like in the heady, I let them put a timer like twice a day and just sit and breathe, breath, breathe, lower into your belly, and just ask yourself, how am I feeling? It's that, like, how am I feeling and what do I need? It's that, like, breathe into your body. Oh, my body feels a bit tense there. I actually feel a bit sad. I actually need just like stroke myself a bit. I actually need to cry. Like how are you feeling and what do you need? And the breath will get you into your body. That's the whole thing of not thinking about it. I think I feel like this, like, so often that's a really beautiful start. Maybe set a timer twice a day. Breathe into your belly. How am I feeling? And acknowledging that, because often, when you work with, use your voice, be in your truth, have your boundaries. Most women don't even know how they're feeling. What is their truth, right? So that's a really simple practice to just start coming back into your body.
Mhm.
Another one I would say is work with music, and I call it move what you're feeling. So you stand, put your feet on the ground, breathe again into your lower belly, into your womb, and just again feel what you're feeling and move that through your body. Move as you're feeling. So if you feel a bit timid, move a bit timid. And if you feel really angry, just fucking move as angry. And you'll notice when you allow the wave of emotion, because it's always a wave, when you allow it to move, another will come. Then you feel really joyful, you feel really sexual, you feel really, yeah, maybe a bit anxious, or so move what you're feeling is a really beautiful practice to work with. You can also do it on hands and knees or standing, and eventually most people will be dancing and feeling really good. Another way to connect to your body in a simple way. I mean, of course, join a sisterhood. Because you'll just have, a sisterhood that works with embodiment. So
Yeah.
healing through the body, feeling through the body. Because you'll just have these moments where you just go in and it's a non-negotiable.
Mm.
That's a really, really beautiful, beautiful practice. And the last one I would add is to really connect to the womb.
Mm.
Because there's a lot of heart connection in feminine work, but the womb is really like the second heart of a woman, and it's a voice that can be a bit more subtle. But when you connect to her, it's like this kind of like ancient shaman, like this deep, it's almost more mature than the heart. The heart can be a bit like fluttery. She like grounds you into the depth of your feminine. So you can do that by just placing your hand on her, connect to where you're at in your cycle. And again, ask her, I would say maybe not what she's feeling, it's a bit more hard, but like, what do you need? Or what do you long for? What do you long to create? Are really beautiful questions for the womb. And connect to your cycle, connect to your blood, connect to the seasons of your cycle. It's a must do if you want to live as an embodied feminine. So those are simple things. It's 4 things that are very simple. Doesn't always have to be an extravagant ceremony or embodied breathwork journey. Great, but it's simple.
Yeah. I have found the consistency of simple practices to often be more potent than the one big cathartic experience in regards to sustainable change. Definitely, that's been true in my life. I want to thank you, Sarah, for your time, for sharing. I absolutely loved spending an hour with you, just getting to hear you speak. I know that you are going kind of off of doing one-on-one work before you bring new life into this wonderful world, which I'm very excited for you. You do have online workshops, and you'll be, I'm assuming, back at it in the next few months, very slowly as you adjust to motherhood. All the links for Sarah will be below. Sarah, is there anything else you want to say before we close?
I would just say that if you feel that pull to eventually your soul, but that pull to awaken something inside of you, to remember that there's like this feeling of there's something else in me, a deeper power in me, there's another life out there for me. Like those whispers are like the longings of your soul to really listen to. And they can be subtle, but following them will never, ever be disappointing or lead you astray. It will open you up to so much magic, and to this real divine being that you actually are. So trust them and follow them. You don't have to see the path ahead yet. But me saying full yes to my soul and my heart in this path is the best decision I've ever made in my life. So I just wanted to add that little spark to anybody who is listening.
Thank you for all that you offer, and thank you for the spark. If you found value in this episode, it would mean so much to me for you to share the podcast with friends, a loved one, or on your social platforms. If you have the time, please rate and review the podcast so that this podcast reaches a larger audience and can inspire more and more humans to connect to their bodies too. Thank you for being here and nurturing the relationship you have with your very own